is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Olivier Schiller. He's the CEO of Septodont, third generation. My gosh, his mom and dad, or his grandma and grandpa, Annie and Nestor Schiller, started this company back in 1932 when I was just graduating from dental school. He's the CEO of Septodont, a family business created in 1932 by his grandparents Nestor and Annie Schiller. Septodont is a pharmaceutical company that develops, produces, and distributes a wide range of products for dentists. Today, the company is the world leader in dental anesthesia. Olivier joined Septodont as Chief Financial Officer in 1995. Since then, he has led numerous projects that allowed the company to grow and expand internationally. Under his leadership, the group also progressed to a new global and integrated organizational structure. In 2012, he was appointed CEO. Prior to joining Septodont, Olivier served in the French Navy on a nuclear submarine. He then joined Arthur Andersen, which is Accenture now, as a consultant, where he worked on numerous organizational and strategic assignments with large industrial groups. Olivier is a graduate of the École Centrale de l'Art and has an MBA from HEC Paris. Olivier also holds other positions, including advisor to the Banque de France, foreign trade advisor for France, and member of the Dean Strategic Council of the New York University College of Dentistry, which I remind you, 7% of all the dentists in America went to NYU. He sits on the board of directors of Movement of Mid-Sized Businesses, METI. He is also an administrator for the France-Israel Chamber of Commerce and an associate member of the Val d'En-Marne Department's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Finally, he also chairs the Cercle des Entrepreneurs of Saint-Mard-de-Fosse. On 21st January 2020, Oliver was appointed ambassador to the mid-sized business by the President of France. And we first, the last time I talked to you or emailed you or texted you or whatever, I was actually at a dental school in France, and they were showing me this new department. And then I see this little picture on there that it was all donated by you. And I took a picture of that, and I pushed it out, and I sent it to you, and I said, thank you so much for giving back to dental schools. And I swear that 10 days I spent in Israel was just mind-blowing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's really an honor to have you join us.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for me. Thank you for inviting me.
The honor is all mine. My gosh, I have so many things that I want to ask you about. We got a lot of kids that are still in dental school. Probably a quarter of the kids listening are still in dental kindergarten school. It's a long. So pretend we just met in the elevator. Give these kids a 2-minute elevator pitch on what is Septodont.
Okay, so Septodont is the world leader in dental pharmaceuticals. We are the world leader in dental anesthesia and all the products that allow the dentist to make the patient numb. And you know it's extremely important because for the dentist to perform good dentistry, it's critical that the patient don't suffer at all. The fear of numbness is the first reason why people don't go to the dentist. So we provide this wide range of products worldwide, and in addition to pain management, we have also a wide range of products that contribute for dentists to go do the dentistry.
How come you named it Septodont instead of Pierre Fauchard juice?
Yeah, that's a good question because Pierre Fauchard was really the generator of modern dentistry. I never met with my grandfather, and my grandfather created this name Septodont, which is aseptic and dental, something like that together. But I unfortunately never could ask him the question.
Well, I'm actually mad at Pierre Fauchard because when the last time I lectured in France, I was so excited to go to the museum, and I went to the museum, and it was closed for remodeling. So were you the one who donated the money to that to get it remodeled like you did the dental school in Israel?
Yeah, that happens in France sometimes. The museums are under repair.
And by the way, I got to tell you, the thing my boys talk about, I mean, we've been to Europe so many times. The boys have gone with me to 50 other countries, and anywhere from 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of them. And they wanted to see the Mona Lisa. And to this day, they tell everyone that was the least exciting thing in that museum. I mean, my gosh. The Mona Lisa is like on the 4th or 5th floor up. And by the time you get there, the Mona Lisa, like, man, you've already seen 100 paintings that blew that one away. I mean, just incredible paintings. And some of them are so large, like 10 meters by 10 meters. And you can look at any detail of a tree and find, I mean, it's just the most amazing art collection on earth. And even if you're not into art, you will be when you go to that museum. What's it called? What's the name of that museum?
La Joconde. La Joconde.
Whatever he said.
If you want, the Louvre is the biggest museum in the world, and you can't just visit the Louvre. You have to spend perhaps 2 weeks there, and you see every day different departments, from Egypt to painting to architecture, and everything. So you need to spend so much time to visit it properly.
And, you know, the pyramids are 5,000 years old, and it's kind of a walk through history. I mean, you got paintings just covering the whole spectrum. I really feel it's just a museum of modern history covered in art. It was just truly amazing. Before we get into dentistry, earlier this year, the French government appointed you ambassador for mid-sized company. How exciting is that to you, and what are you actually doing?
So last year, we had the opportunity to meet with the Chancellor of Emmanuel Macron. And what we wanted to do is really to support what the French government is doing. We think that the present government is very much in favor of businesses. And when we met with the Chancellor, we didn't have any request. We are just telling the Chancellor that we wanted to support what Emmanuel Macron is doing. So this is how this project was created. We want to create an environment in France where we would have as many mid-sized companies, a company between 250 employees and 5,000 employees, as many as in the UK, in Germany, in Italy. So this is what I've been doing since January 21st. I'm interacting with government members, administration, etc., to create an environment that is positive for this type of companies. So it's extremely exciting.
So France has 65 million people. You were talking about Germany had more small businesses. They have 83 million people, so they're about a quarter bigger. But France is about the same size as France, Italy, and the UK. All are 60 to 65 to 67 million people. What I notice, what I love the most about podcast interview, I know you're a private company and you don't have to give the data and things like that, but there's a lot of reports coming that the American dental industry is going to finish 2020 down about 38%, and in 2020, my favorite economist, Vucicek, is saying it's going to be down about 20%. But, man, you would know more than anybody, because every time we do a filling, we got to numb it up with an anesthetic, and you're the world leader in anesthetic. So I don't know if you want to get too private with your information, but would you say that you're selling about 38% less Septocaine in the United States of America because of the pandemic? And are you expecting a 20% reduction in 2021? And do you look at your own data and kind of know how the pandemic is affecting dentistry around the world, and could you share what the numbers tell you?
Yeah, we can be a good barometer for dentistry, because we are present all over the world. So we saw COVID firstly from China. I mean, we had all our order for the first semester canceled at the end of last year when COVID reached China. Then it went to Asia, and it moved west to Middle East, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and eventually it reached the America. So what happened in most of the country is that the practices were shut down by around 2 months. And then the third month, it was not back to normal, but there was a transition to be able to perform dentistry under this COVID situation. So what we're experiencing ourselves is a decline of 20%, which is basically corresponding to the time when the dental practices were shut down. What is lost is lost. We're not going to recover that. But now, in most of the countries, dentistry is back to normal.
So that's a really great insight. So you're saying the 38% contraction in the U.S. dental industry was because for 2 months we got a zero. I mean, we were closed from St. Patrick's Day to Cinco de Mayo. 2 months we got a donut. But you're saying that when we open back up, the run rate is back to normal.
Yeah, I don't see 38%. I think seem to me very much exaggerated. Initially, perhaps some people thought it would be 38%, but I think 20% is more the general trend in dentistry.
Yeah, because 2 months out of 12 months is 16%. So it would make sense if there was a 16% reduction, but the ADA is seeing a 38% reduction in the dental industry. So you're not seeing that.
No, the 2 months was closed down, and then the third month perhaps was 50% of the normal. So you have 16% for 2 months plus 1 month at 50%. So you'd come more or less to the minus 20%.
So you know, I always, I think a lot of people think Septodont is, their core business is pain management with Septicane. But if you look at what's happened since you've been running the show, it's really moved past pain management. I mean, the categories you have, I mean, my gosh, you have materials in dental restoration, endodontics, hand care, impression, infection control, pain management, periodontal and surgical, restorative. And I would love to get an online course from your best dentist on each one of those subjects on Dentaltown. But are you kind of moving away from a pain management company to a full diversified portfolio? I mean, is your goal someday to be able to provide A to Z, or what are you doing in all these different categories?
Well, when the company was created back in 1932, we didn't have any anesthesia. I mean, our products were for to fill cavities, to deal with periodontal diseases. So it's only in the 50s and 60s that we became to the pain management category. So obviously, pain management is extremely important for us, but we go beyond that. And what we love are products that are close to pharmaceutical products. I don't think we are the best to provide a cosmetic product. There are great companies who are very, very strong in doing that. But we develop technologies like Bidentin, for example, which is based on calcium silicate. And when you have a deep cavity, normally you have to extract or you have to do an endodontic treatment. With product like that, I mean, you can keep the tooth alive. So our goal is really, again, to help dentists perform great dentistry, and keeping a tooth alive in a situation that with other products, the need would be to have endodontal treatment, I think is a good improvement to dentistry. So basically, I don't know if we want to cover everything from A to Z, as you said, because we are a mid-sized company. But when something is difficult, when you need a product with a lot of R&D, a lot of innovation effort, then I think we can make a difference.
So on Dentaltown, everyone's talking about, Septodont makes Septicane. That's the brand that everybody knows. But you started a DentaPen, where you load the anesthesia in a pen. And by the way, this is not a commercial. He didn't give me money to come on this show. I begged him for a year to come onto this show. In fact, I've been asking you for 4 years to come on this show, but he wanted to wait till the show got 10 times bigger. But DentaPen, there's always been, there was the wand, and basically how we did this before technology is every dentist learns that the human has 5 nerves: hot, cold, movement, pressure, pain. And if you're pushing on the syringe with your thumb, and if you can feel your thumb pushing, the human's feeling it on the other end. And what you learned how to do is just slowly get that 1.8 cc's of volume in there without pushing with your thumb, just flowing it in there, and it takes a little while. And the wand came out and said, well, let's do that digitally. and that was always there. I think Smart Practice owns it now. But then you came out with an amazing device called the DentaPen, and it says Beyond Injection DentaPen, the new generation of powered injector for dental anesthesia, matches your patient preferences, constant flow to reduce pain. Remember, you get hot, cold, movement, pressure, pain. Constant flow means you're not feeling pressure on your thumb, they're not feeling your jaw, matches your needs, comfort and reproducibility of your injections all day long. So now you're consistently giving a pain-free shot. Matches your habits, no training, both syringe and pen. How long has the DentaPen been out, and would you call it a hit?
Yeah, of course. We launched it last year, and it was a very nice complement to our range of pain management products. We don't only supply anesthetics, but we supply also syringe, needles, topicals, and the DentaPen was a very nice addition. And the beauty of the product is that it does all what you say, which is a very smooth electronic injection, so it's really a pain-free injection for the patient. But at the same time, you don't need to buy a lot of consumable. You just have your standard needle, you put on the DentaPen, and then injection is very smooth. So it has been very successful in Europe, and then now it's coming to the US, and we have a great expectation for the product, because it helps really the dentist deliver the anesthesia in a perfect, controlled way.
It seems like one of your favorite fans is Stanley Malamed, who we had on the show, and he had oh my God, he had so many views, I can't count them all. Is he? I know in America everybody's going to say, "Well, does he? What's he think of the DentaPen? Has he talked about it or anything?"
Yes, of course. I didn't speak with him specifically about DentaPen, but I'm sure it really meets his criteria of delivering pain-free anesthesia. So, yeah. So probably I'm not sure, but probably he has spoken about the product.
He's the biggest kingpin of anesthesiology in America, so I'm sure the townies on Dental Town would love to know what Stan the Man Malamed thought about DentaPen.
I've been traveling all over the world with Stanley, and he's fantastic guy to be with, and for a company that our customers every second, the dentist, they perform 15 anesthesia every second with our product. So obviously Stanley Malamed is a very close friend of Septodont.
Yeah, interesting guy. So, C3S technology. I understand Septodont is more than just pain management, but recent efforts to introduce biomaterials involved in the management of caries process. What is C3S technology? What does C3S even mean?
So it's calcium silicate. And so what is calcium silicate? It is what is being used for cement. So this product, Biodentin, which is made of C3S, is a typical French story. You know why, Howard? Because it's a love story between a professor in university who was teaching how to use cement for the construction, and his wife was a dentist. So together they say, wow, why couldn't we use these products that are being used for construction to make a dental product? And the idea initially was to replace amalgam. And it took 10 years to develop it with a French university. And at the end of the 10 years, the project was very different from what we anticipated. It was not a real replacement for amalgam, because you can't put Biodentin in the mouth and without something on top of it. Or you can do that during a few months, but at the end, it doesn't have the same physical property as amalgam. But we found it had fantastic bio properties. Again, if you have a deep cavity, if the pulp is exposed, and if you put a polymer or a glass ionomer in contact with the pulp, it might hurt, it might be very painful. but our product is totally biocompatible. So the pulp doesn't take the difference between natural dentin and biodentin. And also it regenerates the creation of natural dentin. So this is this product we launched many years ago and was extremely successful. We have more than 700 articles worldwide from best key opinion leaders. And this is really what excites me. What excites me is not growing sales or growing EBITDA. I mean, of course, it's necessary to look at your financials if you want to grow your business. But what really makes me very proud is when we launch new products like Septocaine, like Biodentin, which really improve dentistry.
So C3S stands for calcium oxide silicate. That's Ca3, then an oxygen, then silicate oxygen 4. And that is, you like that molecule, and that's an interesting looking picture of a molecule. They talk about that on Dental Town too. But you said something. You opened up a can of worms, so I'm gonna hold you to it. You brought up the word amalgam, and you know there's some things that you're not supposed to say in life, and one of them is amalgam. But you know what? I think that you know, when I hear people bad-mouthing amalgam, it seems like they were born in the United States and never left the country. They were in Canada. And they haven't seen the world. And there's 8 billion people. And if we look at it rationally, if we reduce 8 billion people to 3, one has a smartphone like you and I have an iPhone. One just has a cell phone with no internet connection, and one has nothing. And when I'm in many of these countries and many of these continents in South America, Africa, and Asia, I think it's a crime to take away amalgam because they don't have the technology, the chair, the high-speed suction, the rubber dam. They don't have all the toys. But do you think that the world is going to take away that option of amalgam? Because historically, it's always the same thing. Rich people who have several options always take away the one option from the poor person. And it's always done in the name of safety, and I'm going to save you. But what is your thoughts on amalgam? And I know, I'm a realist. When you take a dead human and you cremate them, when you cremate amalgams, that's why 6% of the atmosphere has mercury contamination from dentistry. And I've been a long proponent saying that nobody should be cremated until a dentist or a hygienist went in there and extracted the teeth that have an amalgam. But even if we stop placing amalgam today, we're going to be cremating them for a century. And then you have 2 billion poor people that's the only filling they're going to get. So I know that's a lot to throw at you, but what is your view of amalgam today? Because you're in Europe, which has several countries that are the most anti-amalgam, which is okay in a rich European country. It's just not okay in the Congo. So, so what is your thoughts on amalgam?
Yeah, I think amalgam is a great product. As you say, it has fantastic physical properties. It has also fantastic property to fight against cavities, the renewal of cavity, because the oxidation of amalgam, we know it's very active against cavity. So it's a great product, but it's an old product. It's somewhat an outdated product. And the two main reasons, I would say, is one, it doesn't look good. I mean, when you have a black filling in the mouth, it doesn't look good. And secondly, as you said, Howard, for the environment, it's not good to use so much mercury. So yeah, I would never advise somebody who have amalgam in his mouth to take it away. But at the same time, if you want to do new fillings and you have enough money to have a modern replacement or a modern material, I don't think today the state-of-the-art choice is amalgam.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. But again, I just think that if a bunch of people in the rich countries who are still cremating humans with this in their teeth, they got a lot of work they could do in their own countries before taking away amalgam in poor countries. And that was my only...
No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And Septodont created a foundation in 2018. Gosh darn, it was started in long time ago, 1938 or 32? 1932. And now you're starting a foundation. We always hear about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Why did you create a foundation, and what are your goals for your foundation?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate because my grandparents created this company, Septodont, who is very successful worldwide. So when you are in such a situation, you want to give back to your community. So this is what I'm doing with the government for mid-sized companies. But beyond that, we want also to contribute, Septodont directly to our environment. When we had the COVID crisis in France, there were not enough gel for hand disinfectant. So we used some of our equipment to produce the gel. We produced 20 tons of gel. We donated for no money to the region of Paris, the Paris region, so that they could use it for hospital, for school. And so it was a part of the effort in the war against COVID. Earlier, Septodont is close to a city where you have people with a low level of life, and you have a lot of unemployment. So we created a school, a digital school, so that we would take some of these kids who have very little chances to find a job, and we would train them with digital technology, how to create a website, how to create a community, digital community. And by doing that, these people who had difficulty to find a job could be reincorporated in the economic life. We are also contributing to dentistry all over the world. We are donating product with American Tooth Fairy in the US, in Brazil, in India, and in all the countries where we are present. We are working with health organizations to help the global level of dentistry. We have also a very nice program in Nepal where we donated all the products and we sent with some people from Septodont in remote villages to also treat the teeth of kids in Nepal. So really, we have a large range of area where we are contributing to dentistry, improve dentistry, and also to help the people living close to our plants. And to manage that, we thought that it would be nice to have an umbrella of all our CSR initiatives. And this umbrella is the Septodont Foundation.
I want to go back to the DentaPen because I'm a dentist and you do that. A lot of the young kids might not realize that that technology is now known as CCLAD, Computer Controlled Local Anesthesia Device, CCLAD versus traditional syringe technique. Back to data, we were talking about, how much the COVID contracted dentistry. You've had this out. Has DentaPen been out a year?
Yes, more than a year.
Has it hit any number? Has it hit 1%? Has it hit where is it at on the growth curve? And do you think when will it, the 80-20? When do you think 1% of Americans will do this? When do you think 20% of the world will do this?
Well, in Europe, it's we have been very successful in Europe, and then we launched it a little bit later on in the US. And but we launched it just when COVID appeared, so it was not the best moment to launch a new product. So we still think we are going to be very successful in the US, but probably the dentists have other priority today than just looking at this kind of new product. This being said, we think that with DentaPen, you can optimize the time to get the patient number, and in an environment where you need to take extra care of your environment because of the COVID. I think it's a nice way to deliver anesthesia. The same way as with biodentin, you don't need to dig so much in the tooth with if you use biodentin than if you use classical material. So you are going to limitate the need, the time you are going to treat your patient, and you are also going to minimize the aerosol that are generated by the drilling of the tooth. And I can give you another example of what we are doing to try to help the dentist be more effective. When you do an endo treatment, the state-of-the-art technique until today was a worm technique. But using the same technology as biodentin, the C3S technology, we developed a product called BioRoot. And you can use it with a cold technique. So with a cold technique, you can be as efficient as what an orthodontics would do with a worm technique. So it's again a way for dentists to be more effective, to do a great dentistry in less time. So this is also part of our contribution to dentistry, and especially in tough times like the one we are in today.
Well, when I tweeted out there was a study done on it, computer-controlled local anesthetic device, C-clad versus traditional, and when I tweeted it out, not only did I on Twitter did I add Septodont, I even included Emmanuel Macron. So next time you're at a meeting with him, he'll say, "Hey, I might have seen your computer-aided technology." Oh, another thing that I love the most, we were talking about art. When I started lecturing around the world, I found not just the dentist, but, architecture is interesting. Like, we all have to use a bathroom, but every bathroom, the plumbing is different. I'll never forget the craziest plumbing I ever saw was in Austria. It looked like it was designed for the space station. I mean, it had so many pipes and valves and knobs. It was the most over-engineered shower I'd ever seen in my life. What kind of variances do you see between Europe and the United States? Where do you... we're an ocean apart, and take glass ionomer. GCC is in Tokyo. I know they have, a lot of people point out they have headquarters in Switzerland, but that's for tax purposes. But the countries around Japan, like New Zealand, Australia, that region just uses a lot more glass ionomer than the United States. It's just so apparent. What type of variations do you see between dentistry in Europe versus dentistry in the U.S. and Canada?
Yeah, so for me, for European, what is amazing when you go to the US is how much expensive it is to become a dentist. I think if you go to NYU or 20 years of dental school, you have to pay $500,000. But if you do that in France or in other European countries, it's practically free. You have to pay €1,000 to get your application, and so you are trained practically free. Then the insurance are also much more expensive in the US than in Europe. So it creates a situation where there is a lot of pressure, I think, in the dentist in the US to be very profitable. And you have to be a very good businessman in the US to cover all the costs you are incurring. In Europe, it's different, and the investment is much, much lower for education and also when on the ongoing time you practice dentistry. So it creates quite a different environment between Europe and the US. So this is one of the big difference I see between the two continents.
Yeah, I've always thought in my head that politicians, I don't like talking about religion, sex, politics, or violence, but if I was a politician, you don't need any new ideas. With 208 countries, no matter what we're talking about, there's probably 10 countries who do it the best and 10 countries that do it the worst, and I don't even see why anybody would have to try anything new, because everything's been tried and done in the past and in the present. that it's like, okay, well, if X is the present and Y negative is the back in time, why can't people figure out that the United States, I mean, it's just a massive burden to come out of school, $400,000 in student loans, and the American children have almost $2 trillion of student loans. They have more student loans than their credit card debt, and it's scary times now because I look at the savings rate going up, which each person is voting that they're scared of the future and better store their money for a rainy day. So a very high savings rate. In fact, the last time the savings rate was this high in the United States was 1932. That was the beginning of the 4-year Great Depression, 32, 36. And then the same thing with healthcare. And, you see people with COVID that have luxury healthcare going to the doctor. When they're done, they're billed like $200,000 extra stuff. You already have 60,000 Americans declaring bankruptcy each year just trying to treat their disease. Yeah. And then when you say that there could be a better way, if you talk about government health care, they already have socialism for everyone over 65. They have a federal plan, Medicare. Everyone over 65 gets it. Everyone's grandma and grandpa loves it. But then when you say provide that to the working man, they start saying it's socialized medicine, it's evil, it's socialized, and they don't even say the word right, because the origin of socialism was that the worker owned their means of production. Like, I'm a farmer, I own my land, I grow my wheat, and the king may tax me, but I'm not a landless peasant working on the king's land. I mean, I own my means of production. And that's kind of where dentistry is headed right now, because when you look at the big DSOs, of course the big Wall Street people want to get a big line of credit and buy up all the dental office and have the dentists be employees. And that's actually anti-socialism, because socialism would be that the dentist owns their means of production. But I don't have any sympathy for the dentist, because they're the same ones who took away the right for the hygienist to open up her own office and clean teeth. I don't know why they're so afraid of that. So just crazy times. But back to your...
But I agree, Howard. You need to control healthcare spending. I mean, you can't have healthcare spending increasing so much year after year. And I mean, of course, everybody should have access to whole healthcare treatment, including dentistry, and there need to be a system. I don't know what is the best system. France is different from the UK, from the US, but it's critical to have a good control of the cost of healthcare.
That's great. Yeah. There just has to be a better system, and I know that people are extremists, and you just can't be extremists. We got to be able to get control. I think workers should own their means of production, and I think people should have the freedom to afford to keep their teeth and to keep their health. And if they don't have that freedom to afford, I mean, what are you going to do with a country without education and healthcare? What are you going to do with a country with a bunch of uneducated, sick people? I mean, if you really want a great country, I think you'd want them really educated and really, really healthy. So back to your new products. I mean, I'm just going through so many things that you're coming out with. What other areas? So we talked about dent restoration. We talked about endodontics. Hand care it seems like it's a silly subject, but we're putting on gloves on and off. And if you wash your hands really, really well, you have to dry them really, really well. Have you ever tried putting a glove on a wet hand while you're walking down the aisle in a hurry? I've noticed you're getting into the hand care space. What is it that you see in hand care?
Well, we have a great product which is called Septodont Hand Cream, and it really, especially when you need to wash your hand and disinfect your hands all the time, it's really a great product that you can use to protect your hand. And I was amazed one time. I rented a car, and there was a truck who took the car in front of the house I was in. And I went to the truck, and I saw a Septodont hand cream tube just by the driver. So I was really happy to see that our hand cream is not only used in dentistry, but beyond dentistry.
And how long has that been out?
Oh, that has been out for since a very long time, since perhaps 20 or 30 years, but it's still a fantastic product. And today it's very popular because dentists need to protect their hands, as you said, Howard.
So it's 2020. It's October 18th. First of all, does France celebrate Halloween, or is that just an American thing?
No, it's, it has its ups and downs. So it became very popular. My kids loved it. And there was a pumpkin contest in our grocery store not so far from us. And one of I think my daughter, she won the bicycle because she had the best pumpkin of the year. But now it went down a little bit. And unfortunately, with this COVID situation, I don't see kids going to the street asking for candy, stuff like that. So Halloween is not going to be a great Halloween this year.
Halloween, well, my gosh, it's the first big holiday of the fall in the United States. We have Halloween, then a month later Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then New Year's. It's the most time of the year. But I was wondering, we're it's October, so we're down to November, December. We were closed for 2 months. We have 2 more months, and if a dentist is listening to you right now and wanted to finish the year strong, and you have this global perspective of how many dentists do you think are in the world? What would that number be?
More than 1 million. Definitely
more than 1 million?
Yeah.
But would you say it's safe to say there's 1 million dentists like the dentists that practice in France, United States? But don't you think, I think there's actually 2 million dentists. I think there's 1 million dentists that practice like us, and there's another million dentists where I've been to so many of these villages where if there's 5,000 people and they don't have running water or electricity, but every time someone has a tooth problem, this person is sitting there and they have boxes of fake teeth and dentures and partials, and that's their full-time job. So if your full-time job is dentistry, you're a dentist. Yeah, you might not have an alphabet soup initials behind your name. Maybe no one calls you doctor. But there's about 2 million. But you get to see that 2 million dentists treating 8 billion people with about a dentist for every 6,000 people. Knowing what you know from your view, what advice would you give the dentist to finish strong in 2020? They got 2 months. They're open. What would you advise them?
Yeah, so I think they need to work very hard to compensate the shortfall of the confinement. I think many people didn't have the opportunity to go to the dentist because the dental practices were closed. And I think dentists have the huge responsibility because there is a strong connection between oral hygiene and global hygiene. If you have germs in your gum, you can find this germ in your heart. A bad mouth can create strokes. So I think it's a very big responsibility for dentists to provide good dentistry to all people. And even in this difficult time, I think this is why dentistry is so important. And this is why even in a tough situation like today, I think it's very, very important that as many patients as possible can have their dental care.
I've in studying up on you for this interview, and I've been a big fan of yours forever, but you and I have something very, very in common, and that is the digitalization of business. I remember if you're old, and by the way, you kids listen to this, you got to ask yourself, how old were you in 1994? So when you tell me you weren't born, don't tell me you know. Just listen for a second. So 94 is when Amazon came out, and then Microsoft Windows came out, and the 4 big stocks were Microsoft and Intel. They call it the Wintel. And then there were Cisco routers and Dell computers, and everybody was getting digitized. But history is 2020. What people didn't realize is that they had a deadline. It was Y2K, because to save on memory, instead of writing the year 2000, they just had 2 spaces. Like I was born in 1962, but it would have just said 62. So then when it hit 0, all the computers would have thought it was 1900. So everybody was upgrading for that. And then after the new year, the Y2K, everything was fine. but everybody stopped buying, and January sales were flat, February sales were flat, and March of 2000, the Y2K bubble popped. I think NASDAQ was like at 5,800, and it fell all the way to 1,600. It was a big crash. And that was when everybody was screaming and yelling to our president at the time, telling him, hey, you're the least digital person on earth. Free enterprise. We did our job. We invented the technology. We invented the solution. We all invested the money. We're all digital. Why doesn't the government? And I thought if the government would have stepped in at 2000 and said, hey, this is crazy. I had to, this is a true story. A little while ago, last year, the government needed something. They needed proof of my birth certificate. And at 62, I couldn't find the actual piece of paper. So I went down there and she said, well, I need the piece of paper. And I'm like, well, I'm standing right here. I've been paying my taxes to you for my whole life. And she said, I need the piece of paper. So I had to, so I said, well, can't you get it from another state, Kansas? She couldn't. She had no idea. It wasn't her job. So I called my mom. Anyway, long story short, it took 3 months to get this stupid Xerox paper mailed through the snail mail, and then I had to leave work and not see patients and go down there to this government employee idiot and show them. And then she says, my dad was Howard Eugene Ferran, and he named me Howard Eugene Ferran II. Worst idea he ever had in his life. In fact, it was so confusing that his middle name Eugene, they just started calling him Gene, and they started calling me a mistake. And she says, well, how do I know you're not Howard Eugene Ferran? And I said, do I look like I was born in 1938? And I noticed that this is on your radar too, that France could be a lot more digital and a lot less paper pushing. Where does this come from with you? Is your company completely digital? And what letter grade would you give France and the United States government on digitalization? How digitalized are they compared to like Septidont?
Well, digitalization is not taking place in with a constant evolution. When we are stopped down by COVID, our plants were still operating, but we had to ship our products. And normally to ship our product, if we have to ship them to the US or to Algeria or to China, it is a heavy process. Sometimes you have to go to the consulate, they have to be stamped. And so, you have so many papers you need to work with. And what was amazing is under the confinement, where everything was closed, everything was moved to digital in a few weeks. So we are able to convert a lot of paper process to digital with people working from home. Obviously, we had people still going to the plant to produce, but all the support function were at home. And I was amazed how people were able to adapt, and also our environment, the Chamber of Commerce and the consulate and everything. So that was really amazing. As far as the French government is concerned, I think they are doing a good job with the digitalization. Whether we like it or not, I think the best in class is the tax department, is extremely effective in moving to digital. Everything is computerized, so they could lower the administration cost of collecting taxes, and also be more sophisticated in finding strange things and generating control. So I think our tax department is quite strong with digital. Other departments have obviously progress to make. So basically, I think, and this is part of what I'm doing as ambassador of mid-sized company. We need to change the culture of the administration so they consider themselves at the service of the public and have to do whatever is needed to serve the people and make them happy. So depending who you speak with, in some area it's really we are very strong, and in other areas there are progress to be made.
You served in the Navy on a nuclear submarine, and I want to ask you, they call this dentistry uncensored because I'm unfiltered, but France isn't what percentage of France electricity comes from nuclear energy is 75%.
Yeah, we are number one in the world.
Yeah. And when one of the reasons I never can have any sympathy for the global warming people is they just don't make any sense. I mean, they talk about all this global warming, and you say, okay, well, nuclear is 75% of France's electricity, and it's 20% of America. You can scale 20% to 100% in 5 years, no question. But in the last 20 years, they're talking about global warming. They always talk about their little windmills and their solar panels, which isn't even 1% of the U.S. electricity, and they want to scale that to 100. And here's nuclear that's 20% for the U.S., it's 75% France. And then you have really intelligent countries like Germany saying, in fact, we're going to take away our nuclear energy. You were on a nuclear submarine. Is it just fear? Is it ignorance? I mean, what is the deal with people not realizing that nuclear energy could take us off fossil fuels for the entire planet in 5 years?
Yeah, I think you can call it stupidity. I mean, if you are a rational person...
Stupidity, yeah. A lot of that going around. Going around.
Yeah, I mean, there is no cleaner energy than nuclear. Of course, you need to pay attention. You need to have all the right process in place. You need to take care about the filling part, the uranium or plutonium, when that is rejected by the plant. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can produce as much electricity as you need without generating any global warming. So, yeah, I totally agree that what happened in Germany, where the nuclear plants were closed down and replaced by coal plant, I think that was really bad for the climate. So at the same time, I don't know if nuclear is the end of the story. At the same time, I think to have renewable energy from the water, from the sun, and from the wind, I think that's also something important. In France, we want to reduce the percentage of nuclear electricity, but replacing it by renewed electricity obtained by the wind or the solar panels and whatever. But you should never close a nuclear plant if you can't replace it with somebody would have the same impact on the environment.
And, you know, and everybody talks about going to the moon in 1969. I was 7 years old. I can remember it like it was yesterday because it was just that big of an event. And only about one every 5 or 6 houses had a TV. So all your neighbors were in the houses that had a TV. And, you know, here it is, 2020, and we've never even drilled through the mantle, because if you don't like nuclear, once you get through the mantle, it's several hundred degrees, and you could have, that could be your heat source to boil the water, to make the steam, to turn the turbines. But I want to tell a lot of young millennials look at older people like me and they think, why is he like that? Well, look at the plan. You know, you have a solution in front of you that's already been used to scale. It's 20% nuclear in the United States, 75% in France. And what is their first deal? Their first deal, the mob does, is they always say, oh, well, the first solution is more taxes. We want a carbon tax on you. Yeah, that's all you want. You never, that's the only thing you want. If you really were worried about greenhouse gases, you'd scale nuclear from 20 to 100. And you might be asking, well, why don't they just solve the problem? Yeah. Well, if they solve the problem, they don't have a political problem to go back to the polls. So look at their base, whatever their base wants.
Radioactivity is something natural. I can tell you a story. When we are in our nuclear submarine, each of us, you have like a photo film in front of you, hanging here, to make sure that you have not been exposed to any radiation. So all of us, we are fine, but there was one person in the submarine that had been exposed to radiation, and the film turned positive. So we didn't understand, nobody understood why it happened. So they made an investigation. Why did this film turn positive? And actually, the person was in Brittany, and there were some granitic rock which were radioactive. So he was building his house, and when he was building his house, he was injecting radioactive particles, and that's how the film became positive. So even in nature, you have radioactivity.
Right. Great story. In digitalization, the thing I love the most about digitalization is the dentists, their digital information is it's kind of like bipolar. They have all their dental practice management, patient address charts, and X-rays in one system, and then they have their accounting in usually it's QuickBooks Online, which also owns TurboTax. And but the systems don't talk to each other. And you, my gosh, you were with Arthur Andersen. This is your background. I mean, you cut your teeth. You were with Arthur Andersen. You got an MBA. Do you think that healthcare in general has connected the patient information with the accounting information? And if you were back at Arthur Andersen today and you looked at how the large companies get their information, their accounting, financial accounting information, and you looked at dentist or healthcare in general, would you say the Fortune 500 has a better handle on their financial accounting than the average dentist?
Well, I'm not sure, because in companies, I mean, it is the same. You have your ERP, which run all the operation of the company, including finance. Then you have your CRM, which is going to allow it to connect you with your customer. Then you have another system which is managing your production. So the systems speak together, but you can't have everything in one system. You go with SAP for the ERP, you go to Salesforce for the CRM, you go to Starlims to manage your control department. So no, it's, I think, very totally normal to have different systems. The thing which is important is you need to build the right interfaces so that they speak to each other.
But do you think they speak to each other very well today?
Well, I don't know.
I want to ask you another question about the FDI. The FDI is located in Switzerland, but the name Federation Dentiste Internationale sounds very French to me. It seems like when you go to Switzerland, Switzerland seems to an outsider like me, when I lecture there, it seemed like two countries. The part of the country that borders France, it's all France, and you can't really tell you're not in France. And then the part that borders Germany, you think you're in Germany. Is the FDI, would you consider it a French organization?
No, absolutely not. The FDI is a world organization. So you have many international organizations that are based in Switzerland, which is a neutral country. Others are based in France or in the US. But it's not untypical in Europe to have countries with more than one language. If you go to Belgium, a part of Belgium speak Netherlands, Flemish, some speak French. In Switzerland, you even have Italian-speaking people. If you go to Eastern Europe, you have also, it's a multicultural and multi-language countries. So look at Canada. Canada, a part is speak French, a part speak English. So it's one country with different languages.
But I was saying, it sounds like it's, I mean, Pierre Fichard was in Paris, and Paris to Geneva is not that. How long would it take you to drive in a car from Paris to Geneva?
Yeah, it would take five hours.
Yeah, so Federation Dentaire International sounds very Pierre Fichardy French to me.
But you know, at the end of the day, for somebody like me, and I think what is important today is not whether you are French or you are German or you are Swiss. I think we are all Europeans. I mean, the people in the US are very proud to be US. US is a wonderful country. If you take French people, German people, Italian people, I mean, all these countries are very tiny. So I think this is why it's so important to be a strong European point of view. I'm really sorry that UK left Europe. I think that was wrong. But all Europeans together, we are one of the first, perhaps the biggest economical market in the world. So we need to put all of us together as one entity, like China, like the US and all the European together. I mean, we are a very big power.
Yeah, and the reason my boys and myself are so optimistic on people is, we've gone to 50 countries talking to the dentists in each one of those countries, and the dentists are just gems. I mean, they're so nice and thoughtful and sweet in every country. I know we're past the hour. Can I still ask you a couple more questions?
Of course, I love to respond.
You're an advisor. So in the United States, or in North America, the largest city is Mexico City. The largest one in the United States is New York City. You're an advisor to the New York School of Dentistry. When you're looking at New York University, NYU Dental University, the biggest dental school in North America, and look at your dental schools in France, what's the difference? You talked about the cost, where the cost of the license is a lot. But what other variances do you see in the dental education of dentists from New York to Paris?
Yeah, I was really. First of all, it's a great honor for me to be a member of the advisory board of the Dean of NYU. Fantastic opportunity to compare what is happening in France with what is happening in the US. And what really struck me is that NYU is run like a corporation. There is a vision of what NYU want to be. There is a strategic plan. There are KPIs which allow to monitor the performance of the implementation of the plan. The ethical part of NYU, where they just created a center for disabled people, I think is wonderful. So I think NYU is really one of the leading university in the world.
And you have France has, my gosh, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, what do they have? About 15 dental schools?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, when you were little in France, if you were licensed in France, you weren't licensed in other countries in the EU. And then when they passed...
No, you are licensed. If you have a license in France, you can work wherever you want in the European Union.
You can now, but not when you were little, not when you were born.
That's true.
Yeah. So what year did that become available, where licenses could practice anywhere in the EU?
Well, that was when Europe became unified.
What year was that?
So perhaps 30, 40 years ago, something like that.
Okay. So it really, I think it's crazy that dentists come here from France and their dental license is not accepted, and they got to go back to school. And when it comes from Germany and Japan, that's embarrassing. I mean, Germany makes Mercedes-Benz, Japan makes my Lexus, and they come to my country that makes Chrysler, and we don't accept their license. I mean, it's a comedy. And then when they come from India, it's even a greater comedy, because in America, if 5 people apply to dental school, 2 of them will get in. And in India, it's like 5,000 apply for 1 to get in. So that Indian doctor probably is somewhere between Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr, and we don't accept their license. What would happen? I'm a libertarian. I've always been a libertarian. I've always thought the government is the problem. They're not the solution. And I believe in free trade. And I just believe that if you're a licensed dentist in Paris and you want to move to Phoenix, Arizona and be a dentist, that's freedom. And if you don't like it, then you make a deal with the mob and you keep them out with violence. And, every government is just a controlled measure of violence. What would you, how did going from each European country had their own license to now being freely to move around the EU, what was the pros and cons of that? What was the trade-off? What was good about it? What was bad about it? And do you think the United States should try to swing a deal with the EU for licensures, that if you're an accountant or a dentist or a physician in France and Germany and England and Spain, that you could come over here?
Yes, probably it would be very good to have this kind of agreement. It happens in our industry. In the past, the Food and Drug Administration would come to inspect the plant in Europe. So they still do that, but now there are agreements. So the FDA can rely on a French inspection or a German inspection. So there are more and more mutual recognition of the different bodies and also of the diploma. So yes, of course, I totally. I don't think you can do that with all countries. You need to ensure that the level of teaching is enough, and that the level of the dentist is adequate, which unfortunately is not the case with other countries. But between EU and US, yes, I totally agree that there should be the freedom to move from one country to the other one and vice versa.
Yeah, and it's tough for me because I have friends that live in Phoenix and they work here and they can't even get a visa for their wife to fly in. So I mean, they're home sad and crying because they can't be with their family. And I just think that this restriction of the free travel of free people is a tough problem. So I can't believe we went over an hour. I could talk to you for 40 days and 40 nights, but I want to end with this. What are you most passionate about today? I mean, you've had a very long and distinguished career. What's got you waking up with that smile on your face right now? What are you most passionate about today?
Well, my passion is really when I look at what we have done, my team and myself, is what we did to help improve dentistry. So when we bring new technologies, when you can keep a tooth alive in a condition where normally the tooth would have needed endo treatment, or when we can help the dentist make the patient numb in a more effective way, then I'm proud because I think we have contributed to the improvement of dentistry. And by doing that, we have improved global healthcare. So it's a small contribution. It's just a piece of sand among a large, huge beach. But I mean, even if it's a small contribution, I think we have done something which is really worthwhile striving like we do every day.
Well, there's one thing this pandemic shot. I saw, external shocks. I mean, everything is a trade-off. I don't see good and bad. I see, what's the trade-off? And one thing that I lived through in the 80s was just-in-time inventory, where companies like Ford and GM were saying, we don't want to have 1,000 transmissions in the parking lot. We want to get the transmission just as we need to stick in the car. And they had all this just-in-time inventory. And then Japan had an earthquake of about a 9, and they lost a lot of those companies that made parts. And like where my Lexus dealership literally could not do anything to a Lexus for like 3 or 4 months. And they lost a ton of business to the Mercedes dealership across the street. And then this pandemic, we saw it with anesthetic and syringes and PPE, where supplies are made all around the world. And I'm just wondering, when I look at your products, what percent of those products are actually made by Septodont? And what percent of those products are you buying parts and pieces from 10 or 20 other countries and just assembling it? And has this COVID shock to the supply chain, has that changed your strategy about being more of an independent rancher who makes his own cheese and butter and bread and all the parts? Or are you still outsourcing a lot of key ingredients to Asia and North America?
No, obviously we are sourcing products. I mean, you can't do everything. You can be totally vertically integrated. You have to buy things. But we try to be close to our markets, like our plant in France serve mostly Europe. Our plants in Canada and the US serve more North America. Our plant in Brazil is more for the Mercosur. In India, it's more for Asia. So we want to be close to our customers. And when we source products, we try to source products as much locally as possible. So even if we don't manufacture them ourselves, this is an important goal for us because we have the responsibility to guarantee the supply of product, whatever happens. And I think this crisis we have been pretty good because we are able to continue to supply to the market. Also, as a family business, obviously the financial figures are important. But if we have to build more inventory than what would be than what a public company would do to ensure the supply of the product to the customer. We would do that. I mean, we're really focusing on doing whatever we can to serve the dentist as good as possible.
Well, let me ask this example. We were talking about the new C3S, calcium oxalate silicate. Do you make that at Septodont, or do you buy that somewhere else?
So all the products, all GMTA and all of that are done through components that are extracted from mines and purified. But our C3S, we make it entirely. So we have an amazing oven. It heats close to 2000 degrees Celsius, and it melts all the ingredients to make it this product. So because it's a totally synthetic product, it is 100% pure. We don't have any impurity, which is not what is happening with other products. So it is because it is our technology, and it is because we manufacture it ourselves that we can reach this quality of the purity of the product. And this is why when you put it in the mouth, in front contact with the pulp is very happy to be in contact with our C3S technologies.
I got only two more questions. They're fast. Paul Monduc, does he speak fluent French?
No.
He doesn't speak fluent French?
No.
He says on LinkedIn that he's been in dentistry 28 years, and he looks like he's 18 years old. I can't see that guy's face. He can't be over 30, so how does he have 28 years at Septodont?
Well, I think this is typical of our family businesses. I mean, people come in the company. We are very loyal with our people. Paul has been a fantastic contributor to our success in North America, but we have many people within Septodont that have been there for forever. So we are very loyal with our own people. We are very loyal to our suppliers, to our customers. So we are there for the long term.
And that is what he just said. If you were in dental kindergarten school, that just flew right over your head. And what he's talking about is employee turnover. And it's the biggest red flag. So many times a dentist will post on Dentaltown, or they'll email me, howard@dentaltown.com, saying, well, I'm going back to my hometown, and there's two people hiring, and one will pay me 25%, but will pay my lab bill, and the other one will pay me 30%, but I have to pay my lab bill. Which one should I take? And I'm like, well, that's the silliest question about the situation. What if they have two dentists, and one, everybody that works for that dentist has been there 10, 20, 30 years, and in the other office, nobody's lasted 2 years. It's very easy to train a human on how to drill out a cavity and put in a filling. But leadership and how to attract and retain quality key people and keep them 10, 20 years. Like when anybody asks me, how I do it, and my gosh, I only got 50 employees. I know you have more than 500. It's really 2,000. Holy moly! My gosh, 2,000. That's just unbelievable that you're running a legion of people that big. But my gosh, I got a bunch of people that have been with me 20, 30 years. And when you got, your Lori's and Stacy's and Ken's and Dawn's and Marie and all these, Tom Giacobbe, the editor of Dentaltown, he's the first editor we ever had in Dentaltown magazine. He's still there. I don't do anything with that. Howard Goldstein does the website, the online CE. These are great people, and you attract them and you retain them by not lying, cheating, stealing, and staying out of their way and not micromanaging. And if I had a job as a dentist and one dentist, everyone quits after 2 years, and the other one, everyone stays for 20, I would want to work with the guy that keeps all of his employees, because that's a more valuable skill set than learning how to do a root canal, filling, or a crown. And everything that you know about success, you should have learned in the sandbox when you were 5 years old. And if you forgot what you learned in the sandbox when you were 5 years, and I paid very close attention to that when I had my 4 boys, I would sit there and like I'd have these friends that had kids the same age, and I'd want to hang out with Doc, and so I say, well, come on over and bring your kids, and then my kids were saying, well, we don't like his kid, and I'd start focusing in on that, like why does a 2, 4, 6, and 8-year-old not like you? And they're just simple lessons. Not sharing the toys, not, whatever. But my gosh, final question, and I hope it doesn't embarrass you, but when you live in America, you just assume everybody in France loves wine, drinks wine. We just think of you as a wine-drinking country. And I've been to France several times. It's kind of true. You guys really like wine. Do you like wine?
I love wine. I love wine. In my baby milk, my mother was putting wine in my baby milk. That's why I grew like I am now. Of course.
And what is is it a red wine? Is it a white wine? Is there a particular brand? If you're an American listening to this and you were going to have a wine, what would be your wine list?
Yeah, I love wine from Burgundy. Whether they are white or red. The white from Burgundy are made out of Chardonnay, which is, I think, quite popular in the US. But the French wine are often more complex than what you have in the US because we love to blend wines. So you don't say, I will buy a Chardonnay or Pinot Noir or whatever. But you say, oh, I want to have this castle. And when you go there, you see it's a small place, and they don't make so many bottles, and it's a mixing of different kind of grape. And if you go to the one just nearby, 2 kilometers or 2 miles away, it will be different. The way he does wine will be different. So it's much more complex to buy wine in France than in the US, where things are more standardized.
So I don't want to tell you this because you won't like me ever again, but the wine in my refrigerator is actually in a box. So now you know how low-life cretin I am. Only an American would buy wine in a box from Costco, but am I just missing out on the good stuff if I'm not getting it out of a bottle?
But what do you do with it? Do you use it to wash the floor or to? I mean, you don't drink. Do you drink? No, you don't drink it.
Oh my gosh, love wine, but I also think everything is marketing, and I just want to remind Americans, in America they tell you truth, liberty, and justice, but really it's money's the answer. What's the question? And all these wine people, when they were saying that it was better for the heart, I actually looked up those studies, and it's so funny how they take studies from grapes and grape juice and then market them as the benefits for wine. And I'm like, where are all these wine studies? Because I keep finding grapes and grape juice studies, and then the people in the marketing department say, well, grape juice, that's wine. And maybe so, but I think marketing is funny. But hey, again, when I was in Israel, you were a holy and sacred name for what you have done to these dental schools. And I podcast interviewed 2 different deans of the dental schools, and you just have been there a saving grace for so many times. And I got it, you remind me of like Stan Bergman. Twice in my life, I've gone on some crazy missionary dentistry trip out in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden you find this dental office that's as nice as mine in Phoenix, and I'm like, where the heck did this come from? And it was Stan Bergman from South Africa, who's now the CEO of Shine for 20, 30 years. And why did Shine, and Stan Bergman reminds me of Cisco. And back in the day from 94 to 2000, I made so much money on just 4 stocks is all I had. I had the 4 horsemen of Dell and Cisco and Intel and Microsoft. And Microsoft just, they're every top of the bubble, they're still there. It's such a long-term stock because they got about 7 different income streams, whereas Google has one, advertising, 99% of its revenue. Facebook, they're just advertising companies. But Stan Bergman's like Cisco. The reason Cisco was doing so great is because he was trying to integrate all these new technologies in the internet from 94 to 2000 to today. And he knew that he wasn't going to be able to invent something better. So he'd get out his checkbook and buy the company with mergers and acquisitions. And the reason he could do it, and only he could do it, is because they trusted him that when he bought his company, it's the same people in the same city and the same building, and he wasn't going to come in and micromanage, and he wasn't going to come in and make their lives miserable. It was actually going to grow their business because everything would be rolled out into the Cisco deal. And Stan Bergman has made like 60 mergers and acquisitions, and I've met a large number of them personally, and they just say, yeah, Stan was great. He knew exactly what he needed, exactly what he wanted, and he wasn't going to micromanage and stand there every step of the way. He just gave you the freedom to do what you want to do, and you're a part of a bigger platform. And I'm sure you work with Stan distributing Septicane. And
yes, Stan is a very good friend, extremely successful person, but also extremely generous, and also he's contributing tremendously to whatever causes are needed, whether it is in the US and in the rest of the world. So
well, you remind me a lot of
on foundation or some projects.
Yeah.
To help
So again, thank you so much for all that you've done for dentistry, and thank you so much for Septicane, because it has been my go-to anesthetic. For uppers and lowers, I don't have any issues giving mandibular blocks with it, but I'll tell you what, a 4% Septicane profoundly numbs the area, and I pull all of my wisdom teeth. My most fun procedure is not just pulling all 4 wisdom teeth, but after 32 years, I mean, for the last 20 years, I can get all 4 out in not only 10 minutes or less. A lot of times it's 1 minute a tooth, and I hit a timer. And if you're not using Septicane, there's 5 nerves: hot, cold, movement, pressure, pain. You start to luxate on that, and they put their hand up. That's a universal sign. Put your hand up, I stop. I'm turning a wrench. I can feel that wrench. That's what we were talking about earlier, that computer-generated controlled force. If you're turning the elevator, you can feel the elevator, and they're feeling that. You got to stop and give them more anesthetic or nitrosox or whatever. And my gosh, it was 25 years ago. I forgot when. I went to a Stanley Malamed course. He told me to try this. And whenever I ran out and went back to lidocaine, well, then they raise their hand. I got to go back and ligament jet around it. It slows me down. Septicane is just profound anesthesia. And I don't care what you're thinking when you're weighing it on a filling or a crown prep. The true test is an impacted wisdom tooth. And if you pull impacted wisdom teeth, you will learn in about 8 seconds that Septicane is just profound anesthesia. And Oliver, I want to, should I be thanking you for that Septicane, or should I be thanking your great-grandma and grandma Annie and Nestor? Who gets credit for Septicane?
It is a family, and it is also all the Septodont team. You name Paul Mondoc and other people in the R&D department who develop the product. So it's really a team effort that allowed us to do the wonderful things you said about the product. So thanks a lot for that.
And when this pandemic's over, I cannot wait to go back to Paris, but I'm not going back until the Pierre Fichard Museum is open. I'm gonna check that first. But when the pandemic's over and the museum's open, I will fly back there, and you could show me your best French wine that's not
Absolutely.
in a box.
It would be a privilege to have some good wine together. Thanks a lot, Howard.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.